Okay, so we're gonna start the text of the Mesilat Sharim,
continuing forward with the
and we'll jump right into it again. The idea of these shiurim, first of all, the Ishmat Avimori, Shalom ben Tziona, Ishmat Surah B'Surah Haim, and for all the sick of Am Yisrael, V'ducham Yisrael Oshra ben. Okay, so we're going to translate some parts, and other parts we're going to go into depth. Again, as we said before, in many other classes, whenever we're talking about the Ramchal, you're talking about a genius of a mind, and he was able to see past what we could see, and therefore he would minimize many volumes of words in two or three words here. So that's why it's important to break every idea down. Okay, so he starts like this. Again, he starts, if you look in it's Perek Aleph, it's called Bifi'ur Klal Chovat Adam Be'olamo. What's man's duty in the world? Right, so man is here. What's the point of him being here? Why did Hashem create man? Right, he has angels that are perfect creations. Why does he have a fallible man to do anything that he needs? So he starts like this: Yesod haChasidut v'Shosh ha'avodah. So right away, just to point out, like many texts begin, they start with the famous letters of the Shem Havaya, the Ot Yod and Ot Hey, and then the Ot Vav and Ot Hey. As you see, Yesod is Yod, haChasidut Hey, v'Shoresh is Vav, and ha'avodah is Hey. Tells us the essence of what is real Chasidut and what is the Avodat Ha'adam. What's the purpose of man in this world? Hatmima, it's very simple. It's a simple task if you look at it. It's not so complicated. It's got many parts to it. But if you shed off all the lies and all the all of the fake aura that is around physicality, you get a very very simple idea here. הוא שיתברר ויתעמת אצל האדם מה חובתו בעולמו. So what's man's duty? ולמה צריך שישים מבטו ומגמתו בכל אשר הוא עמל כל ימי חייו. And what is he supposed to be focusing on? It uses very, again, mabato is what he sees. It's in terms of eyesight. Because again, the first thing in the avodah is you're gonna have to have a certain perception. Judaism is not an ism. We call Judaism, that's the English term. Yehudi is the actual word, and it's based on the Shem of Yehuda. Yehuda is the one of the tribes, right? And his mother Leah called him Yehuda because she says, "Notati yoter mechelki." I received more than my portion. Therefore, she's calling him Hodaya. She's thanking God. This is the goal and the mission of a Jew, that he feels that he receives more than what he deserves. So it's a constant humility. It's a constant what's called anava. It's a constant thanking of Hashem. Those are constants in the life of a true Torah Yehudi. So it says ma'bato. That's what he sees again. Magamato, and what he's trying to get to, right? So you're always going to have these two perspectives: what you see, what your goal is, and where you're standing, and where you're trying to get to. Okay. והנה מה שהורנו חכמינו זכרנו לברכה הוא שהאדם לא נברא אלא להתענג על השם וליהנות מזיו שכינתו, שזו התענוג האמיתי והעידון הגדול מכל העידונים שיכולים להימצא. So what's the purpose of man? To become close to Hashem, to enjoy from Hashem's Shekhinah. What this means is basically to have a relationship. Hashem says, I have such great things to give you, but I can't give them to you if you're not in a relationship with me, because if I give them to you, you won't even notice them. Right? Think about it. Think about all the simple things: breath of fresh air, heart's pumping, digestive system workings, food having taste. These are very simple things. If a person is not in a relationship with the Baruch Hu, he takes these things and says, okay, that's just a natural occurrence. That's the way things run the world. No, that's not the way things run the world, because there are many people that do not have a great digestive system and they can't eat right. There are people that don't taste food. Think about that. Food without taste. What kind of a world? Think about people that are colorblind, chas v'shalom. They never saw colors. They never saw the beauty of the sky, the greenness of the trees, the blue calmness of the waters. They don't have these things. So Hashem says, all I'm trying to give you is to connect to the Shekhinah. Again, just to go on a little tangent, but the word Shekhinah is related to the word shochen, which is to dwell. Like it says in the Torah, "V'shachanti betocham," and I will dwell amongst them in their midst. The Chazal tell us, right? V'shechanti betocham. This was referring to the construction of the Mishkan. So the text should have said v'shechanti betocho, and I will reside in it, in the Mishkan that you have erected. However, the text says v'shechanti betocham. I've decided, God says, to reside in each and every one of you. This is the personal relationship. There are synagogues and there are books, but Hashem says, I'm found in there only as a stepping stone. The truth of the matter is, my purpose, God says, in creating the world is to have a connection, a shochen, a shechina, a direct residence in your personal life. Okay, this means that it's a constant, A, and B, it's a relationship, right? So just like as in all relationships, right, it requires talking, it requires loving, it requires experiencing. Okay, so this is the greatest gift that man can receive in this entire world is to fulfill this relationship with Baruch Hu. And where does the fulfillment of a relationship really take place? It's going to have to be in Olam Haba. Why? Because in this world, you still are attached through what's called a goof, a body. So long as there's physical needs, there will always be a Yetzer Hara. So long as there's a Yetzer Hara, right, there's always going to be a part of the person which is conflicting with him, which is stopping him from relating to Hashem 100%, right? So if you're looking at the relationship, and the whole purpose of the connection to God is the relationship, right? That's the whole purpose. So again, I don't want to stress this point because think about this. When you eat, making a bracha, you've just related back to God. When you go to the bathroom, you're thanking God after you go to the bathroom with a bracha, a shiyatzar, you're relating back to God. When you're tying your shoes, you sing a bracha, a mechim gaver, you're making the footsteps of man possible. There's a procedure. Everything that we do in our lives is governed by a halacha. The halacha is not so much there to tell us a procedure what to do, but it's more there to remind us of the constant intentions and convictions that we should have in our heart that Hashem is guiding and with us. And again, this relates back to the relationship, right? But again, the relationship, the maximum, if you want to call it the maximum light, the maximum level of relationship is only going to be once there's a separation from a physical requirement. And again, I don't mean to say the physical body, because there's a mahloket, what is Olam Haba? If you're understanding it as the world of souls, so you might understand it as a separation of the physical body. But if you understand it to be the world to come, which is a manifestation of this world, with the exception that the goof no longer is the master and the soul no longer the servant. Rather, it's flipped around. The soul becomes the master and the goof becomes the servant. And so you still have a goof, but it no longer is driven by the same desires. Okay? So that's going to be an olabah. Kihu hanivra behachana mitzarech levar, because that's where everything is going to be. That's where everything was placed already from the beginning of time. The tools, we'll call it, to receive the greatest part of the relationship have already been set over there. And again, what are the tools that we're going to need to receive the greatest relationship? One of them is that it's going to have to have a supernatural connection with the soul. The soul is going to have to be radiating through the body, such that it will control the bodily emotions. But again, be that as it may, our concern is that we have to get to that level. That's the point, right? You have to get to the level where the soul is going to command the body. No longer the body command the soul. Okay. This is what the rabbis taught us in Pirkei Avot. This world is just like a corridor. Before you enter the hall, before you enter the ballroom, you enter a hall, right? So the hall would be comparative to this world. It's the means by which you get to the main point, but you still have to pass through this point, right? So this place called Olam Hazeh, right? You should know the word Olam comes from the word Elim, which is hiddenness, and right, and this is what we discussed many times before, that God runs the world in a hidden nature. That serves a few purposes. One is that it gives free choice. right? Because imagine if you were sitting next to the king, of course you wouldn't dare make a peeps in the wrong direction. However, when the king is no longer looking, right? Think about police. When the police are not patrolling the streets, right? So you drive a little bit more haphazardly. But when you know there's police at every corner, you're gonna make every stop. You're gonna have every button and buckled. You're gonna make sure that the car is running properly. Again, you're gonna be a lot more strict. So how do you really know if a person is in the true relation with the Baruch Hu? So Baruch Hu says, so I'm not going to be there in front of you. I want you to find me. And I want you to have to constantly bring me into your world. I'm in your world, but I want you to reveal it. So that's why the word olam is constructed in the way it is, that it relates to the word elim, hiddenness. V'ha'emtzaim. This is a very important point. I want to stop here for a moment. Emtzaim. Ha'emtzaim. You see that word v'ha'emtzaim. המגיעים את האדם לתכלית הזה הם המצוות אשר ציוונו עליהן הקהל יתברך שמו. So what are these emtzaim? Why does he use this word emtzaim? He's referring to the mitzvot. And he's saying that basically on an outside level, he's saying that the mitzvot are the means by which we get to Olam Haba, right? Think about it. If you look in Apiyah Pshat, right? The more mitzvot you have, right, the greater level you will be in Olam Haba. Okay, but it's got to be more than that, right? So we know that Hashem created the Torah, and in the Torah there are mitzvot. What is the purpose of a mitzvah? So the word mitzvah itself means obligation, commandment. On one level, it shows us the relationship of a man and Akash Baruch Hu. Man is subservient to Akash Baruch Hu. Man requires Akash Baruch Hu to allow him to move and allow him to do anything, right? So mitzvah, on one hand, shows us the way the world is really run. That, hey, without God, you can't move. God commands you to do things, right? That's why whenever we make a baracha, Asher Kedishanu V'tzivanu, and you commanded us. However, we said that this world is an aylim, a hiddenness. What does that hiddenness do? That hiddenness allows an ego to persist, to exist. When that ego exists, it allows the person to be manipulated. It allows the person to think, even for a small amount, and again, we'll get into the levels of the ego, but on the basic level, it allows man to kind of think that he's in charge. Right? Again, you have this in business dealings where a person screams at an employee. Right? Why is he screaming at the employee? Because he feels that the employee caused him a business loss. But the truth of the matter is, God's the one causing the business loss. The employee might have been the messenger, and we know that the rule is don't kill the messenger. Right? You're being sent a message from God. Or a person gets frustrated because his day is not going properly. Well, hey, who are you to determine that your day is going to go properly? Right? We know it says Rabot Bachshavot Belevish. Man has many plans. And the counsel of God, the plans of God, though, that's what's going to come through. Man can plan as much as he thinks. So on the one hand, the mitzvot allow us to constantly connect back to this concept of what's called bitul atzmi, nullification of oneself, removing the ego and allowing the person's eyes, like we talked about before, what he sees, his eyes, to see that God is required. If he's going to even if this person is going to do anything, he requires God's blessing. He requires God's yes, a nod of approval. Because if not, hey, ain't nothing going to happen. If Hashem doesn't will it, it will not be. So, in one hand, these mitzvot are called emtzaim because they get us to this concept. It's nice to say, hey, God runs the world, right? That's a great idea. But throw the person into a business plan, into a business transaction, or into a busy day where business is going slow and he's got collectors calling him, or where his wife is yelling at him. Any of these things where it doesn't go according to our plan or according to our ebb and flow, as they say, right? So what happens? The person can think again, maybe slightly, maybe a lot, right? It depends. You'll know because based on how much a person gets angry. The person